Свердловска или же вблизи. Посмотри.
Рустик, свободен? Нурка, вставай, вставай, подъем, просыпайся! Давай, подъем!
In 1959, 9 young hikers set off into the icy wilderness, never knowing it would be their last journey. Their tent was slashed from the inside, their bodies scattered with baffling injuries, and for decades, no one could explain their fate. Now, 6 decades later, scientists and researchers claim to have unraveled the puzzle, but the explanation is even darker and more unsettling than expected. What happened to these hikers? Let's uncover the truth. A journey into the unknown. On a chilling day in January 1959, a group of 9 young hikers set out on what was meant to be an exhilarating hiking trip through Russia's Ural Mountains. The Dyatlov Pass, the section of the Ural Mountains that the hikers were trekking to, is named after the leader of the fateful expedition, Igor Dyatlov. Dyatlov was a 23-year-old student studying engineering at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Soviet Russia. He planned the trip with 8 other students at the institute who were in their early 20s. All of the students were experienced hikers, as was the sports instructor in his late 30s who joined the expedition. They were joined by a seasoned World War II veteran acting as their sports instructor. The group originally comprised 8 men and 2 women, but Yuri Yudin, one of the hikers, had to turn back due to knee and joint pain, a decision that would ultimately save his life. The goal was ambitious: to reach Mount Otorten, a peak located approximately 10 kilometers north of where tragedy would strike. This expedition wasn't just for leisure, it was intended to earn them Grade 3 certification, a coveted title for expert hikers with extensive ski touring experience. Approved by the Sverdlovsk City Route Commission, this challenging trek led the group into a region classified as Category 3, the most difficult terrain to navigate. Their journey began with a train ride to Ivdel, followed by a lorry trip to Vijay, the last inhabited settlement before the wilderness. Here, Yudin said his goodbyes, leaving the remaining 9 to continue their expedition into the cold. They stored surplus supplies along the route, carefully planning their return. However, worsening weather conditions, including blizzards and sub-zero temperatures, derailed their path. Instead of descending to a safer area, they ended up camping on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, ominously known as the Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language. This decision marked the beginning of a mystery that would baffle experts and fuel speculation for decades. Days after their planned return, a rescue team was sent to them, and the search parties discovered a haunting scene. A shredded tent, slashed open from the inside, and the scattered, lifeless bodies of the hikers. But what really happened on that frozen slope? Could the mystery be explained by science, or does it point to something far more sinister? Let's explore the countless theories that have been explored by researchers over the years. What could have gone so terribly wrong? When the 9 hikers failed to return on schedule, a rescue mission was launched, only to uncover a series of clues. Their tent, partially buried under snow, had been shredded from the inside, as if they'd frantically tried to escape. Yet inside, everything seemed calm. Neatly arranged shoes, clothing, and even partially cooked food, hinting that something had abruptly interrupted their evening. The first bodies discovered, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko, were found about 300 meters away, near a small extinguished fire. In temperatures plunging to -30 degrees Celsius, they were dressed only in their underwear, a detail that left investigators scratching their heads. Krivonishenko had burn marks on his body and even a piece of flesh in his mouth, as though he had bitten his hand in a desperate attempt to endure the freezing cold. Both men were ultimately deemed to have died of hypothermia. A few days later, the bodies of Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin were discovered not far from the tent. Dyatlov and Kolmogorova appeared to have been trying to crawl back to their campsite when they succumbed to the freezing temperatures. Slobodin too died from exposure, but a minor skull fracture added to the intrigue. Their positions suggested disorientation, desperation, and a struggle to survive the elements. The most unsettling discoveries came months later, when the snow melted to reveal the last 4 hikers in a ravine under several feet of snow. Their injuries were nothing short of shocking. Massive chest fractures and fractured skulls were described as being caused by a force comparable to a car crash. Yet strangely, there were no external wounds to explain the internal damage. One hiker was even missing her tongue. Forensic experts speculated that some injuries might have occurred post-mortem in a fast-flowing stream, but tribal confrontations from the local Mansi tribe was considered. The Mansi tribe lived close to the Dyatlov Pass area, relying on hunting, fishing, and reindeer herding for survival. Historically, they were known for their reclusive and sometimes hostile interactions with outsiders, especially with travelers encroaching on their remote territories. It's possible that the hikers unknowingly ventured into Mansi land, provoking an attack by the tribe, who may have perceived them as a threat or intrusion into their sacred grounds, adding to the potential danger of the pass. But there were no defensive wounds, no signs of a struggle, and no evidence of foul play. The absence of physical injuries that could explain such devastating internal trauma left investigators baffled. While the Mansi tribe attack theory was dismissed due to the lack of physical injuries on the hikers, the idea of a wild animal attack remains plausible, and if you're wondering how and why, well, that's what we are about to show you. The wild animal theory. Some researchers suggest that a pack of wolves, a wolverine, or even a Siberian tiger might have driven the hikers to flee their tent in fear. Large animals, known for their aggression and territorial behavior, could have attacked the group, forcing them to cut their way out of the tent and run into the freezing night. The severe injuries found on some of the hikers, such as fractured ribs and skulls, align with a violent encounter with a large predator. Additionally, the slashes on the tent could have been made during an attempt to escape an attacking animal. Wolverines in particular are notorious for their strong musk, which could have overwhelmed the hikers and triggered panic. Despite its possibility, the wild animal attack theory has significant flaws. For one, no animal tracks were found near the campsite. Critics argue that heavy snowfall could have erased any evidence, but the absence of claw marks or bite wounds on the bodies is a notable gap in the theory. Moreover, the theory does little to explain the radiation found on the hikers' clothing. While animal attacks might account for the panic and some injuries, the nature of the hikers' injuries, especially the internal trauma without external damage, doesn't fit the typical patterns of animal behavior. In the end, the wild animal attack theory, though intriguing, remains an imperfect explanation. While it's certainly possible that nature's predators could have caused some of the chaos, the gaps in the evidence make it just another layer to the mystery that still surrounds Dyatlov Pass. More theories offered pieces of a puzzle that still refused to come together. But among all these ideas, one theory stood out, one that might have gone unnoticed considering the era. What could this overlooked explanation reveal about the tragedy? Was the Soviet military behind the Dyatlov Pass incident? Another theory surrounding the Dyatlov Pass tragedy points to potential Soviet military involvement. The discovery of radioactive contamination on some of the hikers' clothing raised immediate suspicions. This anomaly, highly unusual for a civilian hiking trip, led many to believe the group might have stumbled upon or been victims of a secret Soviet experiment or nuclear disaster. The fact that the Soviet government classified the case until the 1970s only fueled global intrigue. To understand this theory, it's crucial to consider the political climate of the time. In the totalitarian Soviet Union, acknowledging state errors often led to harsh punishments, including imprisonment or execution. The government's obsession with maintaining a perfect image left little room for transparency. This secrecy made the radioactive contamination even more perplexing. Interestingly, several hikers had previously participated in the cleanup of the 1957 Kishtim nuclear disaster, a significant event in Soviet history. Could residual contamination from that incident explain the readings, or was there something more sinister at play? Another widely circulated theory involves a failed Soviet weapons test. Witnesses reported seeing strange lights in the sky around the time of the incident, possibly linked to military training exercises or parachute flares. Lev Ivanov, the lead investigator, later admitted that his team had encountered accounts of flying spheres in the area, but was ordered to ignore such claims. These reports bolstered theories ranging from secret KGB operations to extraterrestrial involvement. In 1990, Anatoly Gushchin's book, The Price of State Secrets, Is 9 Lives reignited interest in the case. The book suggested the hikers might have unknowingly entered a test zone for a Soviet secret weapon, falling victim to its catastrophic effects. While some criticized Gushchin's speculative approach, his work encouraged witnesses to come forward with new information. A more recent theory proposed in 2023 posits that a failed rocket launch produced a cloud of toxic nitric acid. According to this hypothesis, the hikers fled their tent in confusion and fear, succumbing to the unforgiving cold. However, even this explanation leaves unanswered questions, particularly regarding the hikers' bizarre injuries and behavior. Nature's fury or misunderstood danger. Another widely discussed theory surrounding the Dyatlov Pass incident is that of an avalanche. The hypothesis suggests that the hikers fled their tent in panic, believing their lives were in immediate danger from an oncoming snowslide. The steep location of their campsite and the harsh winter conditions lend some credibility to this idea. This would explain the sudden destruction of their shelter and their frantic escape into the unforgiving cold with inadequate clothing. Proponents of the avalanche theory argue that the immense pressure from compacted snow could account for the severe internal injuries some hikers sustained. However, several crucial details challenge this explanation. First, no physical evidence of an avalanche was found at the site. Rescue teams reported no debris, displaced snow patterns, or telltale signs of a snowslide. Furthermore, the slope's angle was lower than what is typically associated with avalanche risk. The tent, though partially collapsed, was still visible and not buried under snow, which contradicts what one would expect if an avalanche had occurred. Second, the hikers' injuries remain a significant anomaly. While some had fractured skulls and chest injuries, there were no external wounds or bruising that one would associate with an avalanche's force. This detail is particularly perplexing, as avalanches often leave victims with significant surface damage due to rocks and other debris. Another possibility is that the hikers only thought an avalanche was imminent. A loud noise, the settling of snow, or other environmental cues might have led to a panic-driven decision to cut open their tent and flee. Once outside, they may have succumbed to hypothermia, disorientation, or other unknown factors. Some key scientists involved in propounding this avalanche theory are Johann Gaume, a professor at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, EPFL, and Alexander Puzran, a professor at ETH Zurich. They collaborated on groundbreaking research published in 2021 that proposed a new theory for the hikers' tragic deaths. Their study focused on the possibility of a small slab avalanche, which had not been adequately considered in previous investigations. The two researchers used computer simulations and analytical models to recreate the conditions at Dyatlov Pass during the incident. While the avalanche theory offers a natural explanation for the hikers' sudden and unexplained panic, let's now consider another theory involving natural forces that could have contributed to the hikers' death. The Katabatic wind theory. Similar to the avalanche theory, another natural explanation has emerged for the incident is the Katabatic wind theory. This rare but deadly phenomenon involves intense, gravity-driven winds that sweep down mountainsides, often with sudden and overwhelming force. The theory gained traction between 2015 and 2019 when Russian investigators revisited the case, and a Swedish-Russian expedition provided new insights into the hikers' fate. Katabatic winds are infamous for their unpredictability and power. A historical comparison to the 1978 Anaris mountain tragedy in Sweden, where similar winds killed 8 hikers, adds weight to this idea. The comparable terrain of Anaris Mountain and Dyatlov Pass suggests that such winds could have struck that fateful night in 1959. Supporters of this theory argue that the hikers would have struggled to remain in their tent under the immense pressure of these winds. The logical reaction would have been to abandon the tent temporarily, cover it with snow to prevent it from blowing away, and seek refuge among the nearby trees. Evidence from the site, such as the flashlight left atop the tent, supports this plan. It may have been intended to help them find their way back once the winds subsided. Author Donny Ikar's 2013 book, Dead Mountain, also introduced the infrasound hypothesis, a variation of the Katabatic wind theory. Icar proposed that these winds created low-frequency sound waves that caused physical discomfort and psychological panic among the hikers. Fleeing their tent in a state of distress, they may have calmed down upon descending the slope but were unable to return due to darkness and worsening weather. However, like the avalanche theory, the Katabatic wind hypothesis struggles to explain all the hikers' injuries, especially the severe internal trauma without external wounds. The Katabatic wind theory draws on the principles of nature and physics to explain the hikers' confusion and panic. But what if the cause of their tragic end lies beyond the realm of the physical world? Let's explore how otherworldly forces might have played a role in this case. Supernatural theories. When rational explanations fail, the supernatural often steps in, and the Dyatlov Pass incident is no exception. Among the most popular theories are the Yeti hypothesis and alien involvement, each offering several possibilities for the hikers' tragic fate. The Yeti theory suggests that the hikers were attacked by a large territorial creature living in the remote wilderness. Proponents of this idea often point to a photograph taken by the hikers before their deaths, which some interpret as depicting a shadowy, humanoid figure resembling a snowman or Bigfoot. While chilling, this photograph has no concrete connection to a Yeti attack. Crucially, no large animal tracks were found at the site, and it's difficult to explain the radiation on the hikers' clothing through this lens. While imaginative, the theory lacks compelling evidence beyond a single ambiguous image. On the other hand, UFO theories have captivated many due to reports of bright lights in the sky on the night of the tragedy. Local Mansi hunters described glowing spheres, which some liken to modern-day UFO sightings. This aligns with the discovery of a damaged camera belonging to Semyon Zolotaryov. Despite severe water damage, the developed film appeared to show faint, unusual light forms in the sky. Skeptics argue these could be artifacts from water damage, but believers see them as evidence that the hikers encountered extraterrestrial activity. According to UFO theorists, these glowing objects may have caused the hikers to flee their tent in panic. Some speculate that the extraterrestrial presence disoriented the group, possibly using advanced technology that led to the hikers' injuries and the radiation contamination on their clothing. The idea of a trance-like state induced by UFOs is also floated as an explanation for their single-file descent into the woods. Despite their allure, supernatural theories remain speculative, with little to no physical evidence. They highlight humanity's need to explain the unexplainable, but until more tangible proof emerges, the true cause of the Dyatlov Pass incident remains a mystery grounded in unanswered questions. While the supernatural theories provide intriguing possibilities, the lack of scientific evidence leaves many skeptical. So instead of venturing into the unknown, it may be more fruitful to turn our focus back to the psychological. Could the hikers' experience have been influenced by mental or emotional factors, perhaps driven by the isolation, stress, or even hallucinations brought on by the harsh conditions? Psychological theories. The unusual circumstances of the Dyatlov Pass tragedy have led some to propose psychological phenomena as potential explanations for the hikers' mysterious deaths. One widely discussed theory revolves around paradoxical undressing. This occurs when a person suffering from severe hypothermia experiences a burning sensation, leading them to remove their clothing in an attempt to cool off. Initially, this explanation seemed plausible, given the hikers' state of undress and their exposure to freezing temperatures. Additionally, hypothermia can induce hallucinations and irrational behavior, potentially causing the hikers to flee their tent in fear of an imagined threat. However, this theory has its flaws. Evidence at the scene indicated that the hikers were actively trying to preserve warmth. For instance, some survivors wore clothing from their deceased companions, and the remains of a fire were discovered near two bodies. These details suggest that the group understood the importance of staying warm and were taking measures to survive, not succumbing to hypothermic disorientation. Furthermore, paradoxical undressing fails to explain the severe injuries sustained by some of the hikers, such as fractured ribs and skulls. Another psychological hypothesis centers on the Kármán vortex street phenomenon. This occurs when low-frequency wind patterns create infrasound, which can induce feelings of unease, panic, and paranoia in those exposed to it. The Dyatlov Pass area's unique terrain might have amplified these frequencies, driving the hikers to abandon their tent in terror. By the time they realized there was no real threat, they were too far from shelter to return safely. Despite its plausibility, this theory also raises questions. Could infrasound truly affect all 9 hikers so uniformly, driving them to act in unison? Psychological phenomena typically vary between individuals, making it unlikely for an entire group to respond identically under stress. Moreover, like paradoxical undressing, the infrasound theory cannot account for the brutal injuries observed in the hikers' bodies. An alternate perspective speculates that interpersonal conflict might have played a role. A disagreement could have escalated into a physical confrontation, resulting in minor injuries and the destruction of the tent. As tensions cooled, the group may have ventured into the cold to seek shelter or salvage the situation. While psychological theories offer intriguing possibilities, they remain incomplete, failing to address critical aspects of the mystery. The complexity of this case continues to puzzle many, but there is one person who has dedicated herself to finding answers. Teodora Hadziska. Teodora Hadziska, the founder of Dyatlovpass.com, has devoted years to solving the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Her passion for the case stems from its unresolved nature, and her meticulous work has made her a leading figure in this case. By translating Russian case files into English and creating a comprehensive database of photographs, evidence, and theories, Hadziska has transformed speculation into informed debate. Unlike the avalanche or supernatural theories, Hadziska proposes a human element. According to her analysis, the hikers' deaths were not a result of natural forces or otherworldly phenomena, but were caused by deliberate human actions. She theorizes that the hikers, startled by an unknown threat, fled their tent in panic and encountered armed individuals. This led to a brief but violent altercation. The terrified group was then forced to move toward the tree line, where they endured hours of sub-zero temperatures, likely believing they were fighting for survival. Hadziska's hypothesis suggests that the attackers may have initially intended to let the elements do their work. However, upon spotting signs of survival, such as a makeshift bonfire, they allegedly returned to finish the job. She argues this explains the hikers' severe injuries, the escalation of violence, and the lack of defensive wounds typically seen in a direct physical struggle. The sequence of events, according to her, would have taken several hours, marked by confusion, fear, and the harsh realities of alpine survival. While her theory has garnered attention, it remains controversial. Critics question the lack of definitive evidence for armed assailants and point to the absence of signs of a large-scale altercation at the site. However, Hadziska's work has reinvigorated interest in the case, bringing forward lesser-known details and encouraging fresh perspectives. Whether or not her theory holds up to scrutiny, her work ensures that the story of the 9 hikers and the questions surrounding their tragic fate will not be forgotten. As we explore the theories proposed by researchers like Teodora Hadziska, it's clear that the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to defy conclusive explanation, leaving us to ponder whether the truth will ever fully surface. An ongoing search for answers. Despite the various theories that have surfaced over the years, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains a puzzle that refuses to fit together neatly. From the idea of a wild animal attack to the more plausible avalanche and psychological theories, each explanation offers a piece of the mystery, yet none seem to fully explain the gruesome deaths of the 9 hikers. The Soviet-era reports, coupled with potential cover-ups and inadequate investigations, have only added to the confusion, making it increasingly difficult to unravel the truth. Among the many proposed theories, some have been dismissed due to the lack of concrete evidence, while others, like the one suggesting a military test or even the influence of a strange natural phenomenon, have garnered attention for their unusual nature. However, with many questions still left unanswered, it's clear that more research is needed. As technology advances and new findings come to light, perhaps future investigations could reveal critical pieces of evidence that will help us finally understand what happened that fateful night. Until then, the Dyatlov Pass incident will continue to stand as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching.